Yo, what's up, guys? It's Andrew from GarageBandProfessional.com. Today I'm going to talk to you about panning in GarageBand and just some of the best practices, and I'm going to give you also a general guideline for how to go about doing it. So I'm just going to get right into it. I'm going to try to, stop wasting time in these videos. But anyway, so let's talk about it. So essentially, panning in layman's terms, it's the act of spreading the sound waves in the music evenly across channels to create room and balance in a mix. It's something that I'm actually fairly new to it. I can't say that I'm an expert on panning. I just started getting into it and researching it and tried figuring out how to get it in my mixes better and how to get things to sound more spacious and realistic. You know what I mean? But anyway, I kind of compared it. This is a funny analogy. I mean, it's not that great of an analogy, but it has to do. But I compared it in my article at GarageBandProfessional.com to being like spreading butter on a piece of bread, right? Like before everything is panned and mixed properly, it's kind of like all the butter is just right in the center of the piece of bread. But then after you pan things out, you're like spreading it all around and you're like making things even and kind of, and making it sound better. As I said, it's not the best analogy, but I mean, I think it's not terrible either. But anyway, so the panning dial in GarageBand, it's right here. It's right by the VU meters. You can see it in the interface right here. So you just click on it, scroll it to the left or the right, depending on where you want it to go. It has a nice numerical value system as well. That way you can pan things exactly on point if you want. Anyway, moving on. So let's just get right into the guideline. If you want to, now obviously, like every other aspect of mixing, it's really up to you and experimentation. You have to experiment. You have to figure things out on your own to figure out what you like. For instance, in this general guideline, I don't follow all of these exactly to a T, but they're just helpful to look at and to just act as a guideline for you. So anyway, let's get into it. So for the snare drum, I prefer panning it at 10 and 2 o'clock. And by the way, I'm using a regular clock as a frame of reference. So you can see the image here. That's how I would pan the snare drum. So if you look at my interface right here in my one song, you notice that it's at -10 to pan the snare. So it's slightly to the left. And I was just trying to imitate like a drum, or excuse me, an actual drum kit. Because I know that when you have like the kick, right, is directly in front of you, and then the snare is kind of like off to the right side a little bit. So I mean, I just think of it that way. By the way, I got a present for you. Go to producersociety.com/free mixing cheat sheet. That'll put you on my list to get a free mixing cheat sheet. And I send all kinds of cool tips and stuff that I don't share anywhere else. You can also join my forum at forum.producersociety.com. For now, it's totally free to sign up, but in the future, I'll probably lock it down and then turn it into a full course platform. So anyway, yeah, 10 and 2 o'clock. When it comes to the kick, in most musical genres, you can pretty much assume that the kick is going to be directly in the center, especially in the case of hip hop and rock music. However, when it comes to jazz and other genres, the kick it isn't that important. So the kick will be panned in some other direction. But in the case of hip hop, I mean, the kick in the 808 is always smack dab center. It's kind of like the fundamental aspect of the music. The hi-hats, I pan them to 11 and 2 o'clock. I'll show you what I mean. You can see right here the hi-hats are kind of panned a little bit. It's more like, it's a little less than that, but, I don't know. It's kind of hard to see. I don't know how to play the music with the video so you guys can hear it, but anyway. So I gave the example of the song Maze from Juice WRLD. Like in that song, Maze from Juice WRLD, I feel like the hi-hats are panned slightly to the left, whereas the cymbal is panned directly to the right. You can take a listen to that song and you can kind of hear what I'm talking about. The toms, on the other hand, I'd say 9 and 3 o'clock. I was listening to a song from The Faceless. It's a metal band, and I noticed that their toms were spread out evenly across the left and right headphone. So every time he did a crazy fill, you could just hear the toms like going across the stereo image is what it's called, I believe. When it comes to the bass guitar, and low frequencies, They're pretty much always at the center of the mix, from what I understand. The low frequencies are always in the mix, and I think it makes sense because the low frequencies, they take so much sonic space, so to speak. They take so much noise, so much of the noise created by music, like the low end, is so prevalent. So I mean, if you pan that to the left, that very strong noise or the sound, I mean, it's going to sound super weird. I mean, can you imagine just all the bass and the low frequencies on one left headphone? That'd be bizarre, right? So you want to keep the low in the center. When it comes to the rhythm guitars, you want to pan those to about 10 and 2 o'clock. As you can see here, I mean, this is especially the case in rock and metal music and pop punk. In fact, I would say that they even pan the guitars even farther to the left and right. For instance, in the song Iron Maiden from Iron Maiden, the guitar riff, the harmonized guitar riff, and they're the band that kind of really popularized this, I believe. But the guitar riff is directly to the left and directly to the right. So, I mean, if you take a listen to this song, you can kind of hear it. I guess I'll play it for you right now. I don't know if you can distinguish that, but I hope you can. Anyway, so the acoustic guitar as well, it's kind of the same as the rhythm guitar, 10 and 2 o'clock. I'd follow that as a guideline. The strings, because strings are a complementary instrument, I would say that it's best to keep them at about 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock, using the clock as a frame of reference. The piano, now depending on the piano, sometimes the piano might serve as kind of like the fundamental instrument in the mix, and then in that case you could have it panned closer to the center. But I mean, if it's just serving a complementary role, 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock is a good guideline to follow. Background vocals, 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock as well. And with the vocals, I mean, the vocals are pretty much always going to be front and center. In most popular music, the vocals are kind of the primary sound that people are listening to and paying attention to. So, I mean, if they're panned way to the left, I mean, people are going to be, they're not going to be very open to that. Obviously, you can experiment with things, but... so, yeah, let's just talk about some other helpful points. Checking your mix in mono. This is super useful when checking your panning and how it actually sounds. Because, I mean, if you check... One day I was mixing a song for a client, and I checked the mix in mono, and I realized that with the way that I had panned the instruments apart, I think it caused what's called phase cancellation. And that means that the two sound waves are similar, and they kind of clashed. So they kind of just disappeared altogether in the mix. And I guess this is a common problem with DJs as well. Like, if you don't check the mix in mono, you don't get an accurate representation of how the music is actually going to sound when you play it in front of a crowd. Because, I mean, in a crowd situation, at a live venue situation, those venues are never set up to imitate a stereo image, a stereo like left and right speaker. I guess it's all just coming out as mono, because to make a venue all as stereo, I mean, I guess it'd be way too much money. But anyway, also automation for panning is super useful. I'll show you how to do that right now. So what you do is you go into your GarageBand interface. So yeah, I got my thing selected. Now I usually just hit the button A on your keyboard. Hit A. You'll notice that brings up the automation interface. So you click on this subheading right here, automation parameter. Click on it. Go to pan. Click pan. And then you can start to set up points. And see, you'll notice as I drag this point down, you notice that the dials are moving to the left and right. So watch, you go like this, you can go like that. Let's say you want the pan right to the right side in the beginning, and then you want it to be in the middle towards the end. So you just go like that. And that's how you do that. So that's super useful if you have an instrument that changes position as the song goes on. Anyway, what else? Another tip to keep in mind is to try to avoid accumulating instruments in a few different spots. So what that means is that It's exactly how it sounds. You know, you don't want all your instruments to be pan in the exact same positions. You want to kind of spread things out a little bit. I'm guilty of this as well. Like if you look at my mix here, if you look at my pans, you notice that they're kind of they're kind of not that. They're fairly close together, many of them. But then again, there's not that many instruments. So personally, I think my last mix sounded pretty good. But I mean, it takes time to really figure things out. But anyway, I don't really know what else to talk about this topic. That was just a general guideline for you if you want to follow that. What else should I say? I guess that's it.